very good morning, students. I am Dr. Ramanamurthy here. I am handling computer networks for this semester. So far, you have studied 2 units for computer networks. I am going to handle network layers for this subject. Okay, so I think our introduction part, data link layer part, and physical layer part, you all have studied from the other lecturers. Hope you are very good about it. And today, with that background, we are going to start network layer under unit 3. Okay, in network layer, we are going to start part 1 for today's lecture, and then we continue few sessions in that. So, since to most of you I am new, my name is Dr. Ramanamurthy here. I have joined very recently with this university. Before we continue, I wanted to explain the outline of Unit 3. What all the topics we are going to study in Unit 3, the overall outline. So, network layer design issues, that is the first topic we are going to study. Okay? And what are the services the network layer going to provide to the transportation layer? You all know that there is an interface between a network layer and a transport layer. So, at that interface, obviously each layer depends on the other layer. So, in this scenario, since we are talking about network layer, what kind of service network layer is going to produce to the transport layer at its interface? That is part 2 we are going to see. Then, routing algorithms. Okay, so routing algorithms is the major part of this unit. How many types of routings are possible, and what all the categories of these routing algorithms under these types, those things we are going to see very extensively and very detailed. After routing, the other topic we are going to cover is congestion. Okay, in congestion, what kind of measures we need to adopt to control the congestion in network layer. So, that is the next topic we are going to study. After that, internetworking. Okay, so internetworking is very common in internet, isn't it? What type of internetworking methods available? And in that you have a tunneling, internetwork routing, and packet fragmentation. So, those are the topics we are going to study after that. Then finally, we come to a conclusion in this unit with IP versions. The first one is IP version v4, version 4, then IP addresses. How do we assign IP addresses using this version 4? Then we move on to IP version 6, then internet control protocols, very few like ICMP and mobile IP. These are the protocols we are going to study. With that, we conclude the whole unit of 3. With this knowledge, now this is the time to move forward with each topic in detail. Before every lecture session, we must have an object. Okay, what all the topics we are going to learn in today's class. And the outcome of that lecture class is actually tested either in the form of a quiz at the end of the session or in the form of an assignment, meaning to say an exercise work is given to you at the end of each lecture session in order to summarize what all the topics we have learned for today's class. So, in that way, when you see the objectives, as we discussed earlier, the first thing we are going to study is network layer design issues. What all the design issues a designer face at network layer design. The first thing in that is store and forward packet switching. Okay, so before we move on to the details of this, first of all, I wanted to tell you what is the main job of a network layer. Actually, the answer is visible on the board itself. The first thing is store. Next one is forward. Actually, there are 2 jobs a network layer is always going to do: store and forward. What does it store? The information or the message which you are sending from one place to another place has got different names at different layers, isn't it? In network layer, how do we name it? We call it as a packet. Packet is the word we use for a network layer. Packet. Okay, so store and forward packet switching is the main job at network layer. Then services provided to the transport layer. Actually, I have already explained that to you. At the interface of network layer and transport layer, the network layer is actually providing certain kind of a service to the transport layer in order to make the transmission more effective. Then implementation of connectionless service. This is, we are now going into the technicals already now. What is connectionless? We will see that more in detail in the following slides. Implementation of connectionless service. Then of course, obviously the other side of it, implementation of connection-oriented service. So meaning to say, when we are sending information from one place to another place, in terms of computer networks language, you call it as host to host. We don't call it as host to destination, okay? So actually, all nodes or all the hosts are capable of sending information whenever time comes, isn't it? So that's why the more predominant word we use is host to host communication. Maybe the other host at this moment is receiving information, but maybe at later point of time, that host would send information to another neighboring host or even some other host. So that's the reason we always say the communication at network layer is always host to host or node to node, okay, like that. So when we are talking about this type of communications, in how many types of communications are possible? One is you physically connect them. Even though I'm saying physically, in network layer it's not going to happen physically, okay, we call the term as virtual connection. So where a connection is being established between host to host. Whereas the other one is connectionless service. Connectionless service means here it's wireless. There is no predominant connection laid in between source and the destination, or the host and the host. That is what is referred to connectionless service. Then obviously, since there are two methods, we wanted to highlight the advantages of each method over the other. Same is the case for disadvantages as well. So meaning to say, we wanted to compare these two methods. So that's what actually in today's lecture we are going to see in detail. Okay, now as I said, the first main job in a network layer is store and forward packet switching. Okay, as you see the scenario here, to make this concept quite easy to make you understand, we have taken a scenario where we have two hosts, host H1 and host H2. This part I just now explained, isn't it? We don't call them as host and destination, right? Or the receiving end, like that. So host to host communication scenario we would like to see now as an example, and see how storing and forwarding jobs are done by the network layer. Okay, in this scenario what's happening is a host H1 and another host H2 we have, and these two hosts have a carrier's equipment. What do you mean by carrier's equipment? It's nothing but internet service provider. Carrier's equipment is actually, in short, we call it as ISP, Internet Service Provider. Okay. So now, host 1 has certain process P1, and host 1 wanted to communicate this process P1 or send this information to the destination host H2. Now, what happens is, we take one simple scenario. We have this host always gets connected to the nearest node possible for the given internet service provider, isn't it? So what happens is, whatever the process or the information H1 wants to send it to H2, what H1 initially does is, it locates the nearest node from which it can convey the message. Okay, so what's the nearest message here? As you can see, there are few nodes available here. Okay, so A, B, C, D, and E, and all these nodes actually belong to an internet service provider or a carrier's equipment, isn't it? Now, instead of calling them nodes, a more pronounced name is routers. Different names, okay? Each router is basically what it does is it stores information and forwards this information to the nearest router so that the information can be efficiently transferred to the destination. Okay, so in that way. So store and forward packet switching concept we are going to see now in detail. So here in this case, we have two hosts either side of your ISP, that is internet service provider, and then host H1 wanted to communicate or send some information to host H2. Okay, so now what happens is internet service provider or carrier's equipment is what is needed to connect these two hosts. Now, H1 host gets connected to the nearest router in the carrier's equipment. In order to make you to feel the differences, we have taken two different scenarios. Here H1 has got no network capabilities, so it's actually directly going for a rented line. Whereas coming to the H2, we have a LAN setup, and even the H2 has one router, isn't it? How we know that H2 has a router? See now, F is shown outside the carrier's equipment. So obviously that F does not belong to carrier's equipment, meaning to say F router belongs to H2. But in terms of infrastructure or in terms of the functional features, everything, we would not differentiate whether that router belongs to an individual setup or it belongs to a carrier setup. In either case, the conceptual wise, its functionality is same. Okay. Now, assume that H1 is sending information to H2 via this carrier's equipment. As I said earlier, initially it will send to the nearest router. Now, A starts receiving the information. Now, it stores that information for some time because it has to wait for the checksum. Will there be any errors in the information it has received or not? Meaning to say, before it forwards that information to the nearest router, it stores that information for a while. So that is what is called the concept store. Upon checking the the error verification is done, checksum is verified. Now, router A sends that information to the nearest router C, and so on. And from there, information can be actually transmitted to the another host. So this is how the basic job is done at network layer. Is this concept is clear? So in network layer, the information is called packets. The packet is moved from one place to another place with the help of a carrier's equipment or internet service provider. Okay. What is the job of each router in ISP is it stores and forwards the information to the nearest router so that the entire transformation is done smoothly and efficiently. So this is the environment of the network layer protocols. Then, as I said, these lines are called lease lines because host H1 has a lease line with the carrier's equipment. Same is the case. Router F from the host H2 also has a lease line to the carrier's equipment. Now, the same thing is actually explained in detail here and theoretically. A host with a packet to send transmits it to the nearest router. That's what I told you earlier. Either on its own LAN or over a point-to-point link to the carrier. So there are two things we are telling. Own LAN. In the earlier case, the own LAN was the belonging to the host H2 and a point-to-point link to the carrier. Okay, so that is referring to H1. Wantedly, we have taken two different scenarios so that it's easy for you to understand various topologies. The packet is stored there until it has fully arrived. That is what I told you we are verifying for the checksum. Okay, the router waits for the packet until it fully arrives. Only when the packet is fully arrived, you can actually initiate checksum condition. Any error is there in the information, you verify that before you forward it to the next router. The next one is, then it's forwarded to the next router along the path until it reaches the destination host where it is delivered. So this is what I am telling, until it reaches the destination host. This process continues, isn't it? What do we call this mechanism? Finally, we conclude this mechanism as store and forward packet switching. Hope now this concept is quite clear. Okay, we have finished the first segmentation. Now we are moving on to the next part of it. What the first job a network layer job is, as I said, store and forward packets. The job is already how it is going to do, on what kind of diagrams are associated with it. Those things we have already checked. Now we move on to the next point. As I said, at the network and transportation layer interface, there is some kind of service your network layer is going to provide to the transport layer. So how does it happens, and in what way it should happen, and what kind of services it's going to provide? Those things we're going to see in a very point form now. The services should be independent of the router technology, meaning to say at network layer, we adopt different technologies in implementation of routers. And when it comes to the transport layer has got nothing to do with the technology behind these routers. They all should behave simultaneously, or all the routers among different technologies also should be identified in an identical manner by the transport layer. That should be the ideology with which the service should be provided. Similarly, the transport layer should be shielded from number, type, and topology. This information is not essential to the transport layer. So what you do is, actually, when the network layer is providing any kind of service using either any particular router, it has no intention to make its number, type, and topology to be revealed to the transportation layer. That's why it's shielded. Shielded means basically the ideology here is hidden. Okay. Then the next one is the network addresses made available to the transport layer should use uniform numbering. Okay. The numbering should be uniform. Numbering plan even across LANs and WANs, even though we have different ISPs, okay, internet service providers, the numbering should be uniform. So like that, the services should be provided by the network layer to the transport layer. Hope that's clear. It's actually a very theoretical, there are 3 points you need to study under this category. Okay, now before we start today's class, I told you that there are 2 types of connections. Okay, one is connectionless as such, connectionless service. Now again we take a scenario to make this concept easy to understand. Okay, now what you see in this, we have taken exactly the same diagram so that easy to understand. We have 2 hosts here, H1, similarly another host H2, and these 2 hosts actually share an ISP, internet service provider, or you call it as carrier's equipment. Now, carrier's equipment, you see, another popular name for a carrier's equipment, you can even call it a subnet. Okay? Subnet. Now, you can see there are different routers inside the subnet, and the job of these routers is to store and forward packets from one place to another place. Right? Now, that's what the job we are going to see now. Now, while forwarding the packets, we must also look efficiency, isn't it? I just don't want to forward the way in which I wanted to forward, so that the time taken may be longer, maybe the cost incurred may be heavier, and so many factors are involved in that. So we need to look into an efficient way of routing this packet of information. Okay, so that concept itself is called routing algorithm, and that is the most important point of your unit 3. Okay, now every router, in this case I have A, B, C, D, E, right? Inside the carrier's equipment I am mainly focusing at. So I have 5 routers, and if you include even this one, now it becomes F, because information is going from A to F. Every router has a table, as you see this here. Okay, what does this table is for? What information it's going to give for us? Now table A, meaning to say the router A table is here, and we are writing 2 times. One is initially, the other one is later, meaning to say that this table may not be fixed initially. Initially we are thinking, I want to go from Madras to Hyderabad. Okay, I am traveling now. Now we have a predefined thought. So from Madras, maybe I take a train, go to Gudur, that is one stop, maybe that is router 1. After that I go to Nellore, maybe router 2, and so on. We have a predefined mindset. But later this mindset may also change. Why? Because maybe something would have happened in between. Maybe the link is broken from Gudur to Nellore. Then what will happen? Your initial plan, meaning to say the initial information may be updated, need to be updated, because I do not want to go in that route because link is broken, or maybe the traffic is quite heavy from node A to C. Thereby there is a time delay overhead in between. So that's the reason why every time these routers keep updating their data information in the tables. Okay, so now when you are moving from A to A, do we need any line for that? Definitely no. So as I said, every router has a table. This table gives us information from this router. If you want to send an information to the next router, what kind of a link is possible is been explained actually. Okay, now you see from A to A, if I want to travel, do we need to move from any place to any place? No, right? It's a source itself and the information is there itself. So we are not traveling anywhere. So you will see a dash there. Now from A to B, if the information wants to go, then you need to use B line. So this is what it's telling, B line. Then A to C, so you have a C line. Then A to D. A to D, actually we are thinking using the line B, using the connection from B. Okay. Then A to E using the connection C. And A to F obviously using again the connection C. Like that, we have a table of information initially given by router A. So maybe this is the best possible way of doing things at that point of time. Now, unless and until something happens, some overheads occur in between, then you need to obviously update the table. Okay, later that's what is happening in this case. So now, when the information, we are taking as an example here, a packet is sent from host H1 to host H2. Say for example, the information we are sending from here to hand, the other end is quite longer. Okay, then what we do? We break that into few packets. Okay, so in this case, you have 4 segments. The information, whatever we wanted to send from host H1 to host H2 is broken into 4 segments, because as such that information is a little bit longer. So we are segmenting them into 4 parts. Now, router A, as it thought initially, it's sending the information of first segment using the path as defined in the initial table. Same is the case, it was sending segment 2 as well. Okay, now coming to the segment 3, again it's following the same path. Whereas while coming to segment 4, the router thinks that maybe this path is fully occupied. If I send even the fourth segment using the same path, obviously there would be some delay happening. So router A thinks, instead of following the previous path where 3 earlier segments were sent, why don't we send it to the other possible location? Thereby, the fourth segment will not be in the delay overhead. When is this kind of transmission possible? When there is no connection, meaning to say connectionless. We don't have any predefined route from A to F. That is wireless, isn't it? Now, connectionless, you can call it. Now, each router can make its own decision to follow which path and keep updating the contents of the tables accordingly. Okay, so this is how things happen. Okay, same is the case. You have a C table and E table at each and every router. Initially, there are certain tables available, and these tables tell you if you want to go to from that particular router to another router, what kind of connection earlier was efficiently utilized. And unless and until if there is some problem happening in that route, or maybe this router came to know that there is another shortest path available, then it would not obviously change its table's contents. Okay, meaning to say the table contents need to be dynamic in nature. So this is the example of connectionless service. So routing within a diagram subnet. The packet in this scenario has denoted by a specific term, datagram. We call that particular packet as datagram. Why? Why? Because by looking at the term itself, we can say, yes, this is actually connectionless network. Then the network is datagram network. Obviously, we follow the same topology, notation. Example, where we use this type of connectionless services, Internet protocol, the most widely popular protocol, isn't it? Internet protocol actually adopts connectionless service. So the same thing actually, whatever I explained now is put in point form for you actually in order to later go through these points again, even by mistake if you don't understand any particular part of my explanation. Okay, I assume that the message is 4 times longer than the maximum packet size. As I said, we're just for a convenience sake, we are taking 4 times. It can be actually even more. So the network layer has to break it into 4 packets, 1, 2, 3, 4, okay, and sends each of them in turn to router A using some point-to-point protocol. Then, for example, PPP means point-to-point protocol. Okay, this is a short form for point-to-point protocol. At this point, the carrier takes over, isn't it? So you have handed over the information. The host has handed over the information to the carrier's equipment. Now it's the duty of the carrier to send the information from one place to another place. Every router has an internal table telling it where to send packets for each possible destination. That's what we have seen. Each router has a table, right? Internal tables, we call it. Each table entry is a pair consisting of destination. If I want to go from A to B, B is the destination, and what kind of line for that? Outgoing line for that. How do I reach to the destination? So this information is actually given. Only directly connected lines can be used, meaning to say, if from A to C, if there is no connection, then we cannot say that part, okay? That's obvious, isn't it? So, however, something different happened to packet 4. As I said earlier, maybe router A has thought, now having sent 3 segments earlier using that path, maybe the traffic is already heavy in that route. So now let me choose another path. So then it's actually sending through other thing. Thereby it's updating its routing table. Anyhow, that part is already explained in detail. Now this is the most important thing. The algorithm that manages the tables and makes the routing decisions is called routing algorithm. So this is the most important point you need to understand. Okay, routing algorithm plays a vital role in making your information move from one router to another router in an efficient way. Okay, the next one is connection oriented services. People thought if there is no physical connection or if there is no logical connection, or in terms of computer networks, you call it as if there is no virtual connection. How is it possible that information, is it reliable? Is it going to, is dependable? It's working fast at one iteration, maybe working slow at another iteration, in that way. There are a lot of doubts one set of people thought. So then they thought a connection oriented service can do a better job. Okay. So now we see how it's going to happen. Now, again we take the same scenario, host H1 and host H2. Of course, to make the things more understandable, we included one more host H3 here. Now, what happens is, now I wanted to establish a connection oriented service. I want to lay connection first. Then only packets are sent from one place to another place. Otherwise, the information cannot pass through. Okay? That is the scenario we adopt in connection oriented services. Now, if you see here, when we want to send information from H1 to H2, as usual, you are taking carrier's equipment help, which has few routers. Now, A, C, E and F. Like this, we are laying a virtual connection. Virtual connection is laid. So, whatever the information from H1 is going to H2 follows the laid virtual path. Is that clear? How many packets it may be? Earlier what happened? There were 4 segments. Router A thought sending 3 segments using this path is ideal. When it comes to the 4th segment, maybe there is already a traffic overhead. So let me send it through other path. So that flexibility can be implemented in connectionless. However, it's not possible now. When you want to go to Hyderabad from Madras, this is how the train or this is how the bus goes. So that route is fixed. Even though on the way, if a particular path has traffic overhead, still it passes through the same path because it's fixed connection. Now there are 4 segments, earlier we said, right? All the 4 segments will pass through the same path. People thought this is the technique we adopt in telephone lines. So they were quoting that as an example. This is the best communication possible, having been implemented this topology for years together, isn't it? So that's what the argument, a section of the people argue when they support connection oriented services. Okay. Now what happens is, see now the tables, how the tables differ now. H1, 1, A is having information, meaning to say from host H1, 1 means what? There are 2 hosts willing to send information now. So an identifier need to be given because the same path can be used by other hosts also at later point of time. So we need to say, identify which host information is being forwarded at the moment. So when you are talking about H1, I am giving an identifier 1. Okay. So then from A to C, the information is going on. And obviously that information belongs to identifier 1. Okay. So then C stable, how the C stable is looking at it, from A, it's receiving information from an identifier 1 and it will be sending the same thing to E from identifier 1, like that. Okay. So coming to the E, what it tells, the input to the E is C from identifier 1 and the output from the E goes to F from identifier 1. So this is the first cycle, meaning to say when the information from H1 is passed to H2 via the pre-laid virtual connection. Okay, all the 4 segments are being sent via this connection. Okay, say for example, this job is already completed. Now H3 wants to send the information. What happens? Okay, H3 again 1. Okay, because H3 is another input and using the same path again. Because A can differentiate whether it's receiving information from host H1 or host H3. However, the following routers have no knowledge about it. Whatever A is sending, they are just taking and forwarding it to the neighbor and so on, isn't it? However, the first router which is getting information obviously knows whether it has taken from H1 or from H3. So that is why it need not to update. However, C treats that as a second identifier. From there onwards, the identifier is getting updated. So in this scenario, what we have actually learned is, before information is sent from one place to another place, if you are using connection-oriented service, then a virtual connection should be laid off in the beginning itself. However, that was not the scenario for connectionless service. So meaning to say, the time taken to initiate the process may be longer in this scenario. But once the initial setup time is taken care of, then the information progressing may be taking place at a brisk pace. Okay, but initial overhead is longer in this category. Is that clear? So that is the summary of connection-oriented services, routing within a virtual circuit subnet. Now, connection, as I said, is virtual circuit, the name adopted for that. Then network is virtual circuit network. And the examples where they are widely used are multi-protocol label switching MPLS, and there is one more VLAN, okay, virtual LAN. Also they use this scenario. Whatever I explained just now is again put in point form for you to go through once again. Okay, the idea behind virtual circuits is to avoid having to choose a new route for every packet sent. Some people think that if you are sending packets every time new route, then it is very difficult to follow it up later on. So they go on a conventional notation way. So follow the same route. So avoid new route every time. So that's the concept behind connection-oriented services. So when a connection is established, a route from the source machine to the destination machine is chosen as a part of the connection setup and stored in tables inside the routers. That's what we have already seen in the previous picture. That route is used for all the traffic flowing over the connection exactly the same way that the telephone system works. I told you, right? So this is the concept adopted in telephone systems even as on date. So when the connection is released, obviously the virtual circuit which you laid earlier before you start the connection automatically terminates, isn't it? We are no more sending information. So thereby what happens is that connection which you laid earlier is also getting terminated. For a maybe new message to send again, maybe a new routing connection is established. Another virtual connection may be established. So with connection-oriented service, each packet carries an identifier denoting from which host the information is forwarded, to which virtual circuit it belongs to. Okay. Now, it's a time now to compare these two methods. Okay. Now, deliberately I am using different names now. Okay. See now, virtual circuit, of course, we use the same thing. Earlier, how we were calling it as connection-oriented service. Connection-oriented service, another name is virtual circuit. Like how we have a physical connection. So here there is a virtual connection. Then datagram, this is connectionless. The other name used for this is datagram. I already highlighted that point there. So we have two types of subnets. One is virtual circuit subnet, the other one is datagram subnets. Okay. So when you wanted to highlight the differences between these two, we want to conclude with the comparisons. First thing is you want to compare it with respect to circuit setup. Do you need any setup? For the first category, datagram subnet, meaning to say connectionless. Obviously, we are all sitting wherever we are sitting, and we don't need any lineup for information to communicate. Then what happens is there is no setup time at all. So not needed. That is the beauty of datagram subnet. However, it is essential in virtual circuit subnet. Else you don't initiate the task at all. Initially make the virtual connection setup ready. After that only information can be transmitted. So initial time taken is more in connection oriented. Okay, next one, addressing. Okay, what is that? Addressing. Each packet contains a full source and destination address. Okay, that is very important here. Whereas once the connection is laid on, you don't need the source address and destination address. You just need only the virtual circuit number. Like you have seen earlier, identifier 1, identifier 2, and so on, isn't it? So here the complexity is slowly getting reduced. Then state information. Okay, routers do not hold state information about connections because they have got nothing to do with that. Okay, whereas each VC requires router table space for connection. VC means virtual connection. Routing, then the most important task. Each packet is routed independently. Some look at this as advantage, some look at this as disadvantage. Maybe in certain scenarios it works very well, but as the rate at which the internet is rapidly growing, I told you internet is the best example of a connectionless service. Okay, so you can understand that this methodology is progressing at a rapid pace with a lot of success. Each packet is routed independently. Okay, that's the advantage if you look at it. Otherwise, it also is a disadvantage if your algorithms are not efficiently handling them. Route chosen when VC is set up, all packets follow it. So, this fixed path. Here it is fixed path. Effect of router failures. None except for packets lost during the crash. Okay. But say for example, I said we have already laid a virtual connection. Say for example, somewhere that connection is broken or some kind of overhead taking place. Maybe a lot of time delay or maybe a lot of cost incurring and so on. Okay. Different kinds of overheads are possible, or the link is broken. Then what happens? The whole process dies, isn't it? You would not be able to continue further unless until a new virtual connection is laid on later. So that is a major disadvantage. Okay. Whereas here, since all the packets are not following the same path, maybe the packets which are following the path where there are certain overheads, only those packets you lose. Whereas rest of the packets would have reached safely the destination. Okay, that's advantage. Quality of service. Difficult. Okay, since there is no physical connection, it's actually the difficult possibility. Okay, easy if enough resources can be allocated in advance for each VC. Congestion control. Anyhow, this is a new topic we will study at later point of time. Congestion. Okay, congestion means what? Actually, there is too much of traffic congestion today. You tell that, isn't it? This term is very widely known to us. So, meaning to say the sender is sending too much of information, whereas the path cannot handle it or the receiver cannot handle it with the pace at which the sender is sending. So, then what happens? Congestion builds up. Okay, congestion builds up, and that we see later in more detailed way at later point of unit 3. So, congestion control is very difficult in this, whereas it's easy if enough resources can be allocated in advance for each VC. Okay, so these are the comparisons of virtual circuit versus datagram subnets. Hope that is clear. Okay, before we summarize today's topic, let us see through what kind of questions can come from this particular topic we covered today. It's actually a theoretical part. Okay, unless and until we start routing algorithms, there is no mathematical and this type of notations there. Everything is more or less theoretical. Explain the design issues of the network layer. So that is how we started our topic today. So with whatever the knowledge you gain in today's class, you would be writing some design issues of network layer on this particular part. Then discuss the services provided to the transport layer by the network layer. Even this part I told you, right? At network layer and transport layer and network layer interface, certain help transport layer takes from the network layer, and what kind of services they are. A simple theoretical question again. Then how connection oriented and connectionless services are implemented. So this topic very recently, just now we have seen connection oriented, okay, or another name for that is VC, virtual connection, and this one is datagram, we call it datagram network, okay, datagram network you call it. Explanation of these two independently. Then final part is compare both of them, okay. So this type of assignment questions you can actually prepare for this topic in order to summarize the topic. Okay students, I think today's topic is done. Hope you can follow that. If you have any doubts regarding this topic, my email is already available, so you can actually communicate with me. Thereby I can have even point-to-point connection, meaning to say student-to-student interaction is possible. We can discuss further based on your needs. Thank you. So we may start later other topics.